Hi, my name is Mary Woolley. My spiritual name is Girisha, and I'm currently living at the Mangrove Yoga Ashram at the Central Coast in Newcastle, Australia. And I've been here for about 3 months, and I'm just finishing my yoga teacher training. Before I came to Mangrove, I was practicing as an Ayurvedic practitioner for 9 years. I'm living in a yoga ashram, but Ayurveda and yoga are actually seen as sister sciences. Yoga's, even though it's often portrayed as a physical path, it's very much a spiritual path, whereas Ayurveda is actually about our physicality. It's about supporting our health and well-being on our spiritual path of yoga. So that's how the two combine together.
Food actually is, I should say it, we are what we eat. We are really related with the food.
Everything you eat, minus a few minerals, everything you eat has been alive at some point. And the cycle of life, you can never be detached from. You can control it, but you can't separate yourself from it.
I see food as not limited to the physical food that in Western culture we would call food, but more our diet in general, like our energetic diet. So from the subtle energies that we're picking up through our senses, through interacting with culture and society and those around us, and also the natural environment, to the more dense forms of energy in the physical food we eat.
From an Ayurvedic perspective, the meaning of food is life. It provides us with our life force. It's a source of prana. And that's probably one of the things that sets it aside from other ways of looking at food, in that we don't get caught up about vitamins and minerals and counting things. What we're interested in is the prana content of the food, the life force of it. So if you think about a food as being a continuum, and over here you've got food that's been grown out of season, cooked over, with pesticides, picked before it was ripe, put in a cold storeroom and gassed for a little while and stored, and then put on a ship and transported it, and then it goes to a factory and it goes into a can, and then it comes home and it goes into the microwave, and then it goes into the freezer, and then it goes back into the microwave. There's no life force in that food. On the other end of the continuum, you've got food that's been grown even in your own backyard, and tended and nourished with love. It's grown in season, ideally without any chemicals. You've picked it, you've placed it in your pot, you've cooked it, and you've eaten it. That food's full of prana. And that's what we're focusing on, that you've got food that has nourishment in it.
For example, there can be very dense artificial junk food, and then at the other end of the scale, the more lighter forms of energy, how some people can potentially live off prana or chi or cosmic life force energy without having to eat any physical food, because their human body is a sustainable system.
My philosophy on food has changed slightly, but more through appreciation of all foods, but whole foods that are freshly grown, organically grown, and then prepared. And here at the ashram, we look at food as prasad, so all food is a gift, and I like to enjoy my food in that way.
The big learning for me was to understand that once you get into yoga, and understanding the Ayurvedic principles really helped me to understand what I should be eating and what shouldn't be eating, and what was affecting my balance.
When we talk about food from an Ayurvedic perspective, we're very much looking at the qualities of the food. And very simply put, you can describe that into 3 sets of different qualities: heavy and light, hot and cold, and moist and dry. And when you think about our digestive fire, because digestion is a heat-based process, so so when we talk about our digestion, we're actually, the term in Ayurveda is Agni, and that means fire. So we're talking about our digestive fire. So you think about what helps a fire to burn well, and it's light, dry wood and a little bit of oil. And so light, dry food with a little bit of oil works really well and burns well from a digestive perspective. Hot, cold, heavy, moist food doesn't work so well. Like ice cream. It's like if you pour ice cream over a fire, you're going to put it out. Same thing happens to our digestive fire. Or if it doesn't go out, the body's got to work harder to build that fire up again, and it takes more energy. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to choose the food and eat it at an appropriate time that makes our digestion as efficient as possible, so that energy can be left over for the body to use it for other things. If you think about it very simply and say there's 4 main areas in which the body uses energy. One is the digestive function. One is activity, external activity. One is cleaning, waste removal. And one would be building and maintenance. Okay? When the body's in balance, there's an appropriate amount of energy going to each of those functions in balance. But whenever you put the requirement on the body that it has to give extra energy for the digestion, think about Christmas lunch. Everybody eats so much and then they collapse on the lounge and they say, I can't move. That's literally because every ounce of energy in the body has been pulled to try and make some sense of that mess that's in there.
Living in an ashram, the regularity of meals is really important, and eating at the same time every day. Your body's just prepared for it. Your body's ready to eat when meal times come. Just as your stomach starts to get hungry, the bell rings for a meal, and your body attunes to that. And if you're all over the place and eating here, there, and everywhere, then your body doesn't have a chance to compute what's happening. And
when we're looking at food from an Ayurvedic perspective, we're looking at its ability to digest and for the body to then be able to assimilate that into healthy tissue. So in Ayurveda, it's not just about what we eat, it's about how and when we eat it as well. That we eat it in accordance with nature's rhythms. When our digestive fire is strongest, that's when we have our main meal. When it's weakest, we eat lightly. Making sure that the food is completely digested before we go to bed. So we eat early in the evening rather than late at night, because the digestion process is suspended when we go to sleep, and so we can wake up if we've had a late meal with a whole lot of undigested food in our gut, and that's where we start to develop toxins in the body, and it's the beginning of disease.
I still have a few little flaws, little treats and things, but I definitely try and make sure that I eat a balanced meal and allow myself some treats now and again, which tends to be cheese. So that's my biggest doubt, and it's probably the one thing I'm not supposed to eat, but I just can't resist. I have to have those little treats.
I tend to work with the 80-20 rule. Do the right thing 80% of the time, 20%, okay. You build up a little bit of resilience. It's not about perfection and control. It's about rhythm and balance. It's about tuning into yourself and your thinking and knowing that when there's a difference between an intuitive need for a food that the body says, oh, I really feel like that, and a craving. So learning to understand the difference between those two. Because we will often, when we're out of balance, we will crave something that will take us further out of balance. But when we're feeling well and healthy, we naturally are pulled towards the things that keep us to feel well and healthy. So I've got two little questions that, that 3 o'clock in the afternoon, you really want that chocolate bar or that cup of coffee. Stop, take a breath, tune into the body, tune into your heart space, be totally present, and ask yourself two questions. How do I feel? And what do I need? Because more often than not, you're going to get an answer that says, I'm tired and I need a rest, or I'm sad and I need a hug, or something. But your heart is not going to tell you need a chocolate bar.
This is what we're doing 24 hours of the day. We're feeding our eyes, all our senses, with everything that's around us. But half of the time we're not even absorbent enough to understand and be actually aware of that.
Diet is part of yoga. So the more aware you become of yourself, of your own mind, of your own behaviour, of your own personality, you're becoming more aware of the energy within inside you, your internal environment. And the more sensitive you become aware of those energetic patterns, essentially your karma, energy in action, the more aware you become of what your body really needs.
And one of the beautiful things about cooking here is we have a farm where we produce a lot, or even a lot, but we produce as much as the food as we can for consumption at the ashram, which means we have a constant supply of seasonal fruit and veg, which in my ideas as a chef is a dream. I mean, for me, the ultimate day is when I work on the first half of the day on the farm, harvesting a product. And when I'm up there, I'm practicing a mindful action of harvesting or doing whatever farming work needs to be done. And then in the afternoon, I get put in the kitchen on the roster, and I get to cook whatever it is we harvested that day. I mean, I don't know anywhere else where that opportunity is presented.
Thinking about the whole process of where the food comes from, it really is a gift, not only from nature, but from the people who have been involved in preparing it for me right at that moment to be on my plate.
The other area that steals our energy is too much activity. People are so busy these days, so they're always on the go. So that the amount of energy then that goes to external activity means that there's not enough energy, again, going to digestion or to waste removal or to building and maintenance. And it's that lack of energy at waste removal and building and maintenance, the very things that we can't see and just happen behind the scenes, that's the key to where disease comes from. Because the body's having to continually redirect more energy. Think about somebody backed a garbage truck into the middle of a motel foyer, and emptied it. First thing the manager would do would be to call everybody from every department, from the kitchen, from admin, from cleaning, from building and maintenance, and say, come and help us clean up this mess. This is our priority right now. And so everybody does that. The beds don't get made, food doesn't get cooked, paperwork doesn't get done, something doesn't get repainted. It's okay once a year or a couple of times. If that happens every day, the building starts to fall apart and all of the systems start to fall apart. That's what happens in our body when we're not careful about what we eat.
It's very good to be in the process, how to grow the food, cook the food that we are eating. When you cook this food or this preparation, the leftover of the food, like the peeling or the seeds or whatever, give to the compost, and then from the compost we put on the compost, and then this compost is going to give back to the land, Try to get from the land what we eat and to be in the process, because here at the ashram I am in the kitchen, I am in the farm, and I think I am in all the chants, and I think it's great, and I feel really blessed and lucky to be in this place at this time and this moment and learn and being able to be in the process and give back, and this gives you more awareness and more responsibility.
One of my main bugbears is about breakfast, because a very favourite breakfast that a lot of people like and think is really healthy is to have muesli or porridge with yogurt and fruit. And from an Ayurvedic perspective, that is a digestive nightmare, because the porridge and the oats are heavy, naturally heavy foods. Yogurt is cold and heavy, and you've got two heavies together, and then you put in it fruit. Now, fruit is very light and it moves through the body really quickly and easily from a digestion perspective. When you put it in the stomach with other food, it has to stay in the stomach until that other food is digested. And when fruit sits, it ferments, which is why we get bloating. Have fruit at morning tea and afternoon tea, but not after a meal.
We have this farm to plate concept where we pick it in the morning and we try and eat it in the afternoon, and all these sorts of things. So then you're talking about not only is how it's grown in our community, but also how it's consumed, And one of the things about yoga is that it tells you that you have to do things with awareness, to bring your awareness into everything you do.
And when I went to India, the most amazing thing happened. My guru, Swami Satyananda, said, "You are what you eat." And I thought, my goodness, because then we were eating everything. But in the ashram, our food was just so simple. And he himself taught me how to clean the rice. Sat down and just, with the rice, because there's all little stones in it. So naturally, when you've spent hours cleaning each little piece of each one of those grains of rice, naturally you're going to think, I'm going to have to look after this, and really, when I cook it, it's going to have to be ekdam paka, which means it has to be first class.
And honestly, if you sit there and you're present with your food, so that if you're eating, just do that, just eat. So from an Ayurvedic perspective, we're not watching TV, we're not reading a book or a magazine, we're not having a big talk fest, we're not driving the car, we're not on the computer, we're with our food. And when you're with your food and you're appreciating, you're present and you're thinking about what you're eating, you think, oh, isn't that colour great? Oh, that tastes so nice. And oh, I love that bit. You savour the food, because food is meant to smell great, taste great, and be really enjoyed, because it'll digest better then. You take more time, and so the stomach registers when it's full, and you're satisfied at the end of the meal. So that doesn't mean that an Ayurvedic diet has to be vegetarian. The reason why, there's a couple of reasons, and from a physical perspective, when we're looking at what food is hard to digest, meat is hard to digest. It's heavy. So it takes a lot more energy to digest. So if you're going to eat meat, the suggestion is you eat it in the middle of the day when the digestive fire is strongest. Not late at night when it's quite weak, and then it's going to get turned off when you go to bed, and a couple of hours later. It'll take about 4 hours for meat to go through your stomach. It takes a couple of hours for vegetables, about 3 hours for carbohydrates, and longer for meat. So you're wanting to choose the type of meat you're going to eat, or type of food you're going to eat overnight, so that you're making sure it's digested. So carbohydrates, heavy carbohydrates are hard to digest overnight, and meat. So the ideal evening meal from an Ayurvedic perspective is a light soup, a light vegetable soup, and have your heavier food in the middle of the day when it's got plenty of time to be digested.
It was interesting because I started my awareness of creation and living creatures became a lot more apparent as well. So I was vegetarian many years ago, but I wasn't a vegetarian when I started practicing yoga. And over time, I think my awareness, your awareness increases quite a lot with yoga. And my awareness to not only myself but to others has also increased considerably. So now, like, eating meat or fish is something that I chose not to do.
I really believe, and this I learned in India, that when we kill an animal, the energy of the animal is with fear, with tension, stress. And I think that this energy, this prana, is how we call this energy in yoga, we get some of this energy.
So it's essentially adding to the stress within inside us, because then our body has to use energy to break down that energy of the meat. And the more denser the energy, or the more artificial that form of energy is, the more energy it takes our body to break that food down.
Let me talk broadly about dairy, because cheese is part of dairy. So when you think about the qualities of milk, then milk is cold and heavy and moist. So it's hard to digest. However, from an Ayurvedic perspective, it's very nourishing for the body, and it builds good tissue. So milk and ghee and paneer, which is an Indian a cheese you can make yourself at home, are very important parts of an Ayurvedic diet if they suit your constitution. But what we need to be aware of when we're talking about eating dairy today is the quality of the product. So if you're looking at eating dairy, you want to make sure you get a good quality product, that it's ideally at least unhomogenized, and if you can, unpasteurized. And in Ayurveda, we always boil the milk. We always have it cooked, because you're trying to counteract that cold quality, so it's always warm. And then the other thing that counteracts the heaviness of it is we always have it with spices that are going to support its digestion. And that's where chai comes from. Chai actually originated as a medicinal tea, because cinnamon and ginger and cardamom are all lightening and warming spices. So they counteract the cold, heavy, moist qualities of the milk. And so it makes it easier to digest, and at the same time you're getting that nourishment for your tissues.
So what I've learned here is the simplicity of allowing the food to sing. When you harvest it, I've begun to really believe that the less you do to it, the better. You can compliment it, you don't insult it, but you compliment it, but you don't try and change it. You don't try and make it something that it's not.
I feel more connection with the body, and my body is telling me more what is good or not, and I'm getting really basic but healthy food. And I think because it's really healthy food and organic and very good flavor, you don't need to do much with the food, or you don't need to mix a lot of stuff.
And then on top of that is also educating people, about how to eat healthy, how to eat in season, how to eat, not only and how to farm with awareness, but how to do that with joy, how to bring the joy back in, how good it feels when you grow. Like the other day when I grew this amazing beetroot, like it was the perfect beet, it was round, it was the right size, it was the right color, it had these amazing gorgeous leaves coming off it. I mean, when you grow that beet and you're part of that nurturing process, and you're helping create and support this little beet, it feels amazing and it tastes absolutely incredible.
The Ayurvedic guide for how much food that we should eat is to cup your hands together. Everybody's hands are a different size, so the size of your hands reflects the size of your stomach or its capacity for food. And if you look at the two hands cupped together, that reflects half of the capacity of your food. So it's said to eat this much solid food, so fill your stomach with 50% solid food, 1/4 liquid, and 1/4 empty for churning room. So it can move. Sort of, if you overfill a washing machine, the clothes can hardly move. So there's a churning process that goes on in our stomach that needs to have room to move. So only 3/4 fill your stomach, and only half of it with solid food.
So the most important thing for all of us around food is don't eat if you're not hungry. That is the first principle of yoga.
It's not rocket science stuff. It's really simple, but because we don't understand the qualities of the food and how they interact with each other, we just make poor choices. And when we start to make better choices, it can just improve our health and well-being so much.
The closer you eat to nature, the more sensitive you'll become to what your body needs, because your body is nature, it's part of nature.
All the problems and stuff we have in the world, a lot of it, when you strip it all back, it comes back to community and essentially environment, and that's food, And so you have this beautiful nexus of there's community, there's environment, and there's health, right? All come together. That's how you heal the world, by using the food as a tool.
Give thank you every day to the Pachamama, the Mother Nature or God, for everyone. We have a different concept what's God, but we are blessed to be able to have a plate of food every day, because I think this is really sad. 10,000 people are dying starving every day. And it's something that also we would have to think on the way that we eat.
Ayurveda and yoga are both about cultivating our awareness. Awareness is the key. So the more you cultivate your awareness and get to know yourself, you'll make better choices. It's just about better choices.
One thing I've been really conscious of is like cooking and putting the pleasure and the love in food, and that's all part of the yogic experience as well. Is actually it's the prasad, it's the love, and it's putting all that energy into food, and that just makes food taste better anyway.
It's getting back to that slow food movement, where we are in connect, and that beat not only feels good to